Good afternoon, everybody. We're just gonna wait probably about 2 more minutes, see if anybody else wants to join. Got about 5 more people joining, so all right. Well, it's a little after 6. It is July 12th, and this is the public information workshop relative to Lake Street Parks and discussing the various options that were discussed at not only the workshops, but also from the public information workshops. This is a public information workshop. It is not a town council meeting. So there's no limits on time to discuss. We're here to listen to you and go over the various options that we've been able to research to figure out how we can make it, just more enjoyable for the parks over on Lake Street. Tanya has done a great presentation as part of the agenda packet. I can go through it line by line, but town council pretty much gave us direction on, I think, 6 various items on what to look at. Fencing, the FERDAP grant, so on and so forth, and we can go through that right now. And I apologize because I'm both admin and I'm trying to go through the presentation at the same time. And if you want to ask a question, you can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat. But basically, again, I think everybody is, aware of the issues that we've had over at Lake Street Park and Lake Down Park. A lot of the residents have been experiencing like loud noise, drug use, stuff that you typically see at parks and stuff like that. I'm not sure because I haven't had any complaints recently about this summer over at Lake Street, but you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. But there was discussion relative to the FERDAP grant, whether we have to pay it back, what restrictions are going to be associated with that, and what we can do as a town to make sure that the parks are going to be enjoyable for everybody and make sure that they're still public, because we cannot make them private. So Tanya and I did discuss with DEP when it came to the FERDAP grant, because a lot of people were like, okay, we'll just pay back the FERDAP grant. I think was it 127,000, Tanya?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So when you receive public funds, you have to keep the park public. So we assume that part of the grant agreement, which was done prior to my time on as town manager and Tanya as public works director, that if you pay back the funds, then you can go ahead and make them private. But unfortunately, when you receive those funds, you have to keep them public in perpetuity. You have no option to pay it back. So there's certain things that we can do to hopefully reduce the amount of issues that are happening at those parks, and we can discuss those tonight. So here's a list of the items that town council wants to look at. As you've seen with Fernwood Park, I think that is a great example of how we can work together with the surrounding residents in curtailing some of the issues that are happening over in that area. We now have a key code for not only the boat ramp, but also the, pedestrian access there too. I know there was discussion relative to creating like a no swim zone over on that side, but talking with Orange County and Orange County EPD, it's probably not going to work. We don't have enough, for lack of a better term, evidence of issues out there. But the real question is going to be enforcement. With FDWC and OCSO, it's just not going to be something that they can take care of. So we looked at the costs for fencing the areas. Again, this would be like a wrought iron fence that you would see at Fernwood Park. The total cost would be around $37,000. And this is what it would look like. Now, again, I don't want to give false hope to anybody that just by putting up a fence with an access code is not going to relieve the issues that are happening at the parks. Hopefully it'll reduce it, but it's not going to stop any of the issues that we see currently right now. You can say from Lake Street and Lake Down. Our jurisdiction ends at the normal high water elevation, which is pretty much in the water. So it's going to come up like, can people go around the fence? Can they come, from the water? Yes, they can. But the minute they set foot on town right away or property, that's when we have jurisdiction. But, we're trying to do what we can in order to, again, curtail some of the issues that we've seen over the last couple of years. There's only so much we can do. So one of the options that we've discussed is putting up the fence, having a gate code, and this is going to be something that, FERDAP's going to allow, is that, we would give, again, codes to the residents, but we would still need to allow for codes for non-residents. So we can limit that number to a certain amount. And then we can charge for that use. So when you see in Winter Garden or any other area, if you're going to go use a public facility and you have to pay more for a non-resident, that's something similar to what we would have to do for these areas. So basically that's it. I mean, we're trying to do what we can to resolve the issues out there, but it's really hard to. And with the fact that we received FERDAP funds for the pier over at Lake Street, we're kind of handcuffed in what we can actually do. But we're trying to do as much as we can to make sure that everybody is enjoying the parks and the residents that are adjacent to the parks are still enjoying their peace and quiet. So, Tanya, is there anything you want to add?
No, sir, that's about it. It's like what you said with Fernwood. We can reduce the amount of people that are accessing that park, but you're never going to completely eradicate the situation. So we can always start with first steps and see how that goes.
Right. And we do have Heather Ramos, our attorney, and we have Deputy Chief Bonk on as well. So if there's any questions from a law enforcement perspective or a legal perspective, we can address that as well. So I see Gian.
Yeah, it's just pronounced John. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's Italian. My parents wanted to make life a little difficult. So we live at 414 East 5th Avenue, which is right in front of the dock, right next door to the Kellogg's. So you had made mention of, has it been better this year? It has absolutely been better this year as far as the noise and the traffic and all of that. And I think the police department has done a great job of staying on top of things. We see them go by all the time, but the park's closed. So, of course, it's going to be much better. we do want to see the park open, and I think it's great if we can get people there because it should be enjoyed by folks. But it's just when you get 40 teenage kids down there blaring music and whatever, that's when it kind of, you know, you got the jet skis and all that. That's when it's not fun. Now, I did hear you say that we have to keep it public in perpetuity. It was my understanding in the last meeting, and maybe I misunderstood, that once this agreement ends, then we kind of get the park back. Is that not the case?
No, it's not. The agreement that was entered into, when you receive the funds, the park has to be open to the public, the general public, in perpetuity. So there's no going back on that agreement.
That kind of stinks. Okay, well, I guess that answers that. But you know, from my personal perspective, the fence, as long as it's, you know, one of the things we like about the property is view. So we would, that fence seems to be okay, but you know, it's one thing in a image, but we'll see what it looks like in real life. But other than that, I like the idea. I think it cuts down on the you know, the folks coming in and wreaking havoc. That's my
Yeah, I
feeling.
mean, no, and I agree with you. It's not going to resolve the issue, but hopefully it scales down the issue. And by requiring those certain things, hopefully, again, that will reduce the amount of traffic that you see out there.
Right. The other thing is, you know, if my vote counts, I say take the roof off the dock so people don't go on it. But that's it. Thank you for listening.
Hey, no problem. No, and actually, that is one thing that we did discuss, is taking the roof off. You know, there's some people that like it. There's some people that don't like it. People are talking about maybe putting a metal roof on there. But, you know, is that really going to stop people from jumping off of it? Whether it's hot or it's not, you know, teenagers are teenagers. So they're going to do stupid things.
It'll just stop them from jumping off at that height. You know, from the dock level, it's not that big of a jump.
Hopefully. All right, thanks. Maya?
Hi, I'm actually Maya's dad. I'm following her on.
I'm just butchering names left and right now. So.
That's all right. So I had a question about my name is Frank Walters. I live at 535 Ridgewood Drive. Obviously, I have the same concerns, mainly safety concerns. You know, we were here before the hurricane, and when that place was down there out of control with all the jet skis, I would not let my grandkids swim in the water. You know, we like to do cannonball contests off the dock and ride their paddle boards. And you know, before the hurricane, if they were here on a weekend, I've got jet skis buzzing my dock, and you know, I try to talk to them about the 150-foot rule, and they want to cuss and fight, and it's just, anyway. So it has been good since the hurricanes, but again, like the person before me said, it's closed, and that's what gives the police teeth. It's like, hey, you can't be here because it's closed. So I guess my question is, once you put the fence up, and if a non-resident has to have, do they go to town hall to buy a ticket to get in?
You go to Public Works and just get a key code
Okay.
in order to gain access. But again, it's very hard. I mean, I hate to say this in a public format, but it's going to be very, very hard to enforce. You don't want to create negative police interactions with the general public. You know, do you want our officers going up there and checking IDs? You know, people that, you know, go out there, swim, stuff like that. They're not going to have their IDs on them. And then, you know, you get into the discussion of, okay, well, how many people can a resident have with them when they go enjoy the lakes? So I think just adding the fence there would, you know, create that line where people would be like, okay, well, this looks private, or it looks like I need to, you know, find somewhere else to go.
Right.
But it's not going to, you know, completely absolve the issue. And again, I mean, I don't want to be negative, but you're still gonna have issues. It's a park, and it's a lakefront park. But hopefully this will, reduce the amount of issues that you guys are currently experiencing.
I 100% agree. It's definitely a step in the right direction. And you mentioned that there would be a limited amount of non-resident.
Correct. We have to figure out what that number is, and that's why legal's on. But yeah, you have to allow a certain amount or percentage of non-residents to be able to access that park.
And then also, I think you mentioned that you can control what days the park is open. It doesn't have to be open all the time.
Correct. Dates, times. Some of the issues that we had with Fernwood Park was, we have the ability to, adjust those times depending upon like 4th of July. We adjusted the times to where you can actually gain access and, get your boat out during a certain time. But yeah, it's, sun up to sundown is when those parks are open, and anything beyond that, they can get trespassed for, a year or forever.
Okay. And I think that'll at least have some teeth. And last question, at one of the meetings, they mentioned something about possibly putting buoys out to where you can swim there, but you can't bring your jet ski up to the dock. Has that discussed further?
Yeah, again, there used to be buoys at, was it Lake Down, Jason? Yeah. So there's buoys out there, and actually one of the residents went out to the Butler Channel Lakes Advisory Committee and asked for additional buoys. And DEP was like, what do you mean buoys? And the buoys we found out with the Chan on them were illegal. You need to go through FWC, the state of Florida, in order to get that as a dedicated no swim area. And what we saw with Bird Island was, again, it's just so many hurdles you have to go through, and it's just a hard process, and you need, concrete evidence that this is going to make everything a lot safer, and it's unenforceable. But we had to remove those buoys, or else we were facing a $10,000 a day fine, because they were put up there illegally.
Gotcha.
Is there any limit to the amount of jet skis that can congregate in one of the park areas?
Again, our jurisdiction ends at the water line. So that's going to be an OCSO or FWC issue.
So there's nothing no limit that you know of on any congregation of motorized vehicles run a dock.
I mean, once they moor up to the beach, then we have jurisdiction. Or if they try to tether up to the dock, then we have jurisdiction. But if they're off, I'm not sure of any law that's out there. I think they call them like flotillas.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, I mean, even when we had Bird Island issue, the people that were against it were like, okay, we'll just go off, a little bit, and then we'll just tether up together and just have this huge party, with all the boats tied together. But, I'm not sure there's a law against that. And Jason, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
So that does, sorry, go ahead.
you're correct, Robert.
So, and I was going to ask about them wandering on the property. Like they would be able to stop them, right? Because it's like,
No, I think that, again, I think we're heading in the right direction, and the fence is definitely going to be a deterrent, and just have to see what happens and go from there.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, I wish I could give you better news saying that, it's going to stop everything, but it's not. But again, it's, as you said, step in the right direction. We can see how it works, and, we can build upon that.
Yes. Thank you.
So, all right. And then hopefully the next person that I'm going to call on is actually Paul or Lisa.
Yeah, this is Paul Eastwood, 323 East 4th Avenue.
Oh, hey.
How we doing? There you
It's been a
go.
while.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm in agreement. I think that the fencing there is a step in the right direction, and it's a deterrent. We're never going to stop, the problems we're seeing, but we need to try and make it as troublesome and problematic and inconvenient as we can to try and control the situation. But my observation from what we're seeing here in the end of our pier is that we see a lot of jet ski activity, which I hear multiple times, but we see the donuts, we see the figures of 8, meters away from the end of your dock. But what we're seeing last summer, the summer before, was there's businesses being run whereby they were collecting, the public from the end of our dock here or the one on Lake Street there, and doing like thrill rides and I don't know, taking them out, spinning them around, and they're turning the jet skis over, and then we get oil slicks coming up on, washing up onto the shoreline. And I'm just wondering, I know it's not Windermere police responsibility, but how can we police that? How can we, when I shouted off the end of the dock, hey, do you do jet ski rides? It's like, oh yeah. I said, well, you do realize it's illegal to be running a business from a public. And then suddenly it's like, oh no, sorry, no, I don't speak English. And suddenly they change language and they ride off. So clearly that was generating a lot of foot traffic down there, where people are coming down there just to do these things. But how can we control that? Because the problem I think we see is that the sheriff boats we see out by Bird Island, we see a lot of activity out there and control, but in Lake Down, I'm not sure they can get underneath the bridge, under the canal. So we don't really see that many sheriff's boats policing Lake Down. I know they have jet skis, but we don't really see that much. How can we control these jet skis from going crazy on Lake Down? I'm thinking because of that low bridge, it attracts the jet skis because there's less boaters on this side, and we seem to get a lot of jet ski traffic on this side.
No, I mean, I agree. But the fact of the matter is, FWC, I think they have 12 agents for 4 counties, and there are a lot of lakes, a lot of waterways. Sorry, my dog's barking. And with OCSO, again, it's going to be hard for them to. Sorry. The problems with Zoom from home. OCSO too, they would have to launch off of 6th Avenue in order to gain access to Lake Down. When most of the issues are actually on the other. So again, that's where it comes into the enforceability. A great example of how we were able to, take care of, this dog never barks, but of course he does it now. Was Chase in Maine, where we had somebody renting pontoon boats off the dock, and then we had code enforcement get involved, as well as Orange County and DEP, and they're able to shut that down. And they actually, they're renting the place, and if they continue to, do that, then it would have been a lien on the house for a certain amount of money per day. So there's things that we can do through code enforcement. But when it comes to actually enforcing stuff, it's gonna be difficult because we only have jurisdiction to the waterway, but we have to work with OCSO and FWC.
No,
Hey, Robert, I will say that we had the similar issue at Fernwood where jet ski and boat companies were picking people up off the dock at Fernwood. And when we put the gate and the access code in, we've been able to limit that now. So it could help to improve that situation.
And Robert, that's where Lisa Eastwood speaking here. I think the fence will put off people coming when they have to cross that line then to get on and be picked up. So I'm all in favour for the fence going across. Also, as well, with no parking, that's been amazing, because last night I had to call the police, so I waited 15 minutes. There's kids outside, lights are off, engines running, but at least now the no parking signs are there, it can be enforced, and the police just move them away. So for us, that's a huge gratitude, and it has helped. With that fence across, we can stop those businesses then, because where are the people going to park? We're going to make it more and more difficult for people to come in, apart from the genuine people who want to come in and have the picnics. But anybody coming in to do misdemeanors and see a fence, for me, then that puts them off.
No, agreed. Again, all we're doing is creating a deterrent, but it's not going to solve the actual issue. And again, anything that we do is going to be a step in the right direction. Tanya, I'm going to turn over to you so I can give the dog a biscuit or something like that so he can be quiet.
Yes, sir. Paul
Can
and
you
Lisa.
guys, can you guys hear
Paul-
him?
No, I can't. So,
Oh, man.
Paul and Lisa, do
I'll
you
be
have
right
any
back.
more? Paul and Lisa, any more comments, or should we move on to Margaret Ross?
Yep, move
Yes.
on, we're all in favour for the fence.
Yeah,
Okay.
really good, thank you. Cheers.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Ms. Ross?
Hey, everybody, this is Scott Ross, actually. So we're at 305 Magnolia on the opposite end of the park. And it has been nice, while it's been closed, understanding that it needs to open and the fence is definitely a step in the right direction. Robert said something interesting earlier about not wanting to have the police go down and check IDs and check things out when there's clearly a lot of things that police could intervene with. Why is that?
Are you? It's a double-edged sword. With police, you want to make sure that there's positive interaction as opposed to negative interaction. So when an officer comes up, I mean, if there's something illegal happening, of course they're going to, take care of it. If, and somebody's, acting inappropriate, they're going to take care of it. But having an officer come in again and just saying, hey, let me see your IDs, it just creates that negative interaction that you just don't want to have with not only your residents, but it creates, again, an issue with law enforcement versus a teenager or somebody else. During the summertime, we have an agreement with was it the advisory committee? So, we're able to use overtime, so we can have either reserves or officers. They can check not only Fernwood, but they can check Lake Down and Lake Street. But you don't want to put your officer in a position to where it's a negative interaction. And I hope you guys can understand that. You don't need law enforcement to be, you just don't want, them coming up and saying, hey, let me see your ID. And Jason can attest to this. You want to make sure that the interactions are positive, or if there's something going bad, if there's, smoking weed or if they're drinking beer on the dock, then yes, that's something that we can take care of. But just coming in and saying, hey, are you a resident or not a resident, then it just becomes something that's negative.
Okay, so how does that work? So you walk by the dock, you can drive your boat by the dock and smell weed.
Yeah.
So do we call Windermere police? What do we do to, make it a favorable interaction, if that's what we're looking for, when there's clearly lots of illegal activity going on by teenagers?
Right. I mean, if there's a blatant illegal activity going on, then yes, we can respond. If they're on our beach dock, then definitely we can, cite them. With marijuana laws the way they are now, it's mostly a civil citation, but we can trespass them. Whether a resident or not a resident, we can trespass them for a year, 3 years, 5 years. And we have been doing that. And we also have cameras at all of the parks too. So if they drive up, we can get their tags, and make sure that we can, take care of it.
Okay, thanks, guys.
And again, I apologize. My dog, for some reason, is barking. Scott.
Assume you mean Scott Hartog and not Scott Ross, right?
Yes, sir.
So I have a clarification question about where the fences are going to go, and then probably a longer question. On the terminology, the Lake Street Park is the one that has the cover on the dock, and the Lake Park is the dock at the end of 4th Street that doesn't have the cover, or is...
Sir, the Lake Street Park is the one along 5th with the dock with the cover. Lake Down Park is the one off of Magnolia and 4th.
Okay, so is the fence going to cover that second one that you mentioned? Lake Down Park?
Yes, if you go to the first slide where we talked about the fencing, there's two options. There's Lake Street Park, and then there's Lake Down.
And none of these options are going to cover the park at the end of 3rd Street, right?
No, not at this point.
Okay. And then the harder question is kind of focusing in on, we've been talking about having drugs at these places and what we could do about the presence of people at these docks, but I want to know specifically what we can do about the noise. Is there, I don't know where we stand on like the ability to enforce like really loud music. I think one of the pervasive things that really annoys people even in their own homes is this, they get out there and they play music with a lot of obscene language and they basically force you to listen to their music in your own living room with the volume that they play. And I'm just curious what we could do to enforce that specific thing.
Again, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it's just hard to enforce. Number one, there is a noise ordinance that's, not only from the town, but from Orange County. And, with the lakes that we have, sound travels. You cannot dictate the content of whatever music they're playing. My kids will be playing Taylor Swift, whether I like it or not. But you just cannot dictate that.
Not even if it's obscene language, you can't dictate that.
You can't. And even Heather's on and she can respond to that. Heather?
No, unfortunately, the obscene language, that's a protected First Amendment right for people to listen to the music they want to listen to.
I'm fine for them listening to it. It should be my right to not have to listen to it.
So, Mr. Hartog, where are they listening to the music? Is it just out in their boats that's out in the water? Is it on the dock?
Well, we have boats, but I don't think there's boat situations, but I don't think the boats would be under the town, right? When we were having the groups of teenage kids in the summer on the dock, they would be playing it from that dock. And I point out, I live on 3rd Street, so I live 2 blocks away and I can hear it in my living room. That's how loud it is.
Let us discuss, let me discuss with Robert and Tanya, if it's on the dock, that perhaps we can just do a rule that specifically says no music or nothing. I mean, we have to discuss it and then figure out how we can approach it. So it needs to be even to everyone and across the board the same. So maybe we can come up with something that would work that way to help at least a little bit.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be the guy who caused a no music at all rule, but maybe music volume is a measurable thing. It has a quantum measure. Maybe we could make it music over this particular volume level.
And that is already in the noise ordinance, right, Robert? The decibels, correct?
It is, but they got rid of the decibel count because they had to calibrate the meters all the time. So it's the distance of where you can hear the noise. And that was discussed last night too. But again, we can create policy or rules and regulations as far as, noise, stuff like that. So,
and hours of the day, that kind of thing as well.
Yeah, I mean.
So I think it's worth looking into because it is one of the more, I would call it more invasive issues with the dock, right?
And I agree. And we're all in a catch-22 because, we're dealing with issues that, some of them, yes, are our residents that are, creating the issue, but a lot of them are, non-residents that are creating the issue. So how much restrictions do you want to put on yourselves to access a public park? To make sure that, again, the adjacent property owners are still enjoying their properties and, the people that are visiting the parks are still having a good time. So, but yeah, no, there's things that we can do as far as the noise. But once they're in the water or on the lake, that's when it comes OCSO or FWC, mostly OCSO and Orange County Sheriff's Office. I'm sorry for using acronyms.
Yeah, I mean, on the bright side with the boats, at least they go by. So you hear the music for like a minute while they're going by and then you don't hear it. But with the dock, they could be out there for an hour or 2 hours playing this music that you can't not hear.
Right. And that's the same thing we have with Bird Island. You can hear it pretty much all the way to Forest, if not past that. And then people are talking about like maybe creating a no wake zone. But then you're slowing the boats down with that loud music and, you're just trying to do what you can to solve the issue.
What we need is like everybody who uses the lake should have to go take a common courtesy course. That's what we need. Make the
I
whole
wish
damn
that was the
country take
case.
it.
Well, and then even talking with FWC and OCSO, you know, with Bird Island, there's 50 boats. They would show up and get a noise complaint, and it's like, okay, well, where do we go?
Which boat?
And then we tell one person to lower it, and then they drive back, and then somebody else is blaring it. They just can't tell who's actually violating the noise ordinance, and it's mostly just, hey, turn it down, or, you know, a civil citation. It's not like they're going to arrest somebody for a noise complaint.
Yeah, and I don't know if I would want somebody arrested for a noise complaint. That seems kind of severe, but
No,
but
agreed.
at the dock, I don't think identifying it would be as big an issue as Bird Island.
No, that wouldn't. So if somebody's, you know, blaring music off their iPhone or, you know, something like that, then we can actually go out there and tell them to turn it down.
Yeah, I also wonder, just as a add-on question, whether the swimming area might be easier to get through on the Lake Street Park than it was on Bird Island, because Bird Island's out in the middle of the lake and it doesn't have a clear boundary, whereas this Lake Street Park has a nice little cove that could easily be sliced off. And I think if you know, we might have an easier time convincing somebody that that should be a swim area. But
in theory, I wish it was so easy, but it's not, because you have so many agencies they have to work with in order to get that approved. But we're still working with Orange County to, you know, when Bird Island became an issue, they, you know, then everybody started throwing in all their issues from all over Orange County. And so that's why they separated Bird Island out, not as a test case, but they're like, hey, this is the biggest issue of the day right now. But there is a ton of areas that people are having issues with, people congregating, you know, the boats just getting together, stuff like that. So we'll continue to try to get that, but I can't make any promises because it's not our ultimate decision.
understand. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Scott. All right. Kara?
Hi, yes, it's Kara. I'm Kara Barker. I live at 525 Lake Street, and we moved in about a couple years ago. And we're a house across the way from the lake. I guess one of my biggest questions, I do think the fence is going to go in the right direction, but unfortunately, it's going to take. There's like 3 groups of big, like I would say at least 20 to 40 kids that come around, and it's going to take them once to not get in trouble, and it's going to end up being exactly like it was. I'm trying not to be negative about it, but I have a 6-year-old that loves to go down there, and she has seen some horrific things, and it's just really disappointing. But I guess the bottom line is, when are we going to be fixing the dock, because there is damage, and when are you going to be opening it, or do you have an ETA yet?
Well, we're working with FEMA from Hurricane Ian. You know, if we were to fix it, there's no reimbursement for that. So we're working on not only fixing the dock, but, you know, reestablishing the shoreline and the sidewalks.
Okay.
So you know, when you start working with other agencies, there's a lot of red tape, and, you know, it just takes time. So I'm glad that everybody's been really patient, but we're working to get that fixed. And hopefully actually enhanced, so it won't have the same damage if another storm like that comes through.
Okay. Yeah, no, we're just, that's curious. I mean, it's, you know, it is what it is at this point, but I was just more curious than anything.
Yeah, I'm still working on stuff from Hurricane Irma. So
Yeah.
hopefully it's going to move faster than that. But Tanya and her team have been working really diligently on getting those reimbursements or getting that those projects approved. So
Okay. All right. And then going back to the whole, you can be in the water, but not on the land, so to speak. So say we wanted to go down there and we walked in the water. Can we swim in the water? We just can't be in the physical tape area. Is that correct?
oh yeah, you can go in the water.
Okay.
The only reason that the tape's up there is because of the dock and the sidewalks and stuff like that. So
But it's all
we do it-
taped off too by the water, like by the I don't know, it looks like the trees and the swing there. I mean, everything is all ripped off.
Yeah, we do that for a liability standpoint, but
Okay.
yeah, you can go in the water. Just be careful. But
Okay.
anything landward, we have to make sure that the town's protected.
All right, I understand. And then, I mean, I know in a perfect world, it'd be great. I know we don't want to have negative police confrontations, but I think it would just take maybe a few weeks for that to happen. And then some of these kids would decide to find somewhere else to loot. But I don't know. I have a lot of emotions right now about this, but I guess we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and it's understandable. I mean, law enforcement's out there a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
when we talked last time, the amount of interactions that we had out there was a ton. You know, it's either proactive or reactive. But like, you know, if you're out there with your kids and you're swimming, having a good time, you know, you may be like, okay, well, you know, this officer that's been for ID, stuff like that, but somebody might not be so welcoming.
No, I understand. All right. Well, no, I appreciate you guys looking into this and trying to fix our situations here. So that's great.
Right.
That's
And
all I have.
again, with Fernwood, the minute we put that gate up and we start the access codes, we've heard nothing but positive feedback. So hopefully, you know,
Okay, good.
when this does get implemented, it'll be the same reaction.
Okay, great. No, I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you. Million? Walters? Million?
Milani, maybe?
I see
Yeah,
Frank.
sorry, hello. Yeah,
Rick.
it's her husband, Jeff.
Oh, Jeff, there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sorry, got a lot going on over here.
No worries.
So I'll be in and out listening to the meeting. I just want to say positivity of the fence. I think it's going to be great. So I like where that's going. One thing I didn't know, is there going to be a max occupancy for the park?
That's something we can discuss. I mean, the problem that creates is like, okay, like let's say that you and your kids go out there and then there's teenagers with their friends, stuff like that. And then we hit capacity, and then, you know, it's how much pain do you want to put on yourselves for, again, stuff that is not you're doing. But yeah, that's something that we're thinking about. But it's just trying to figure out what that number is going to be.
Okay, and then second
Do you
question.
understand what I'm saying?
Well, I get what you're saying. I just didn't know if that was something that we talk about before it goes to town council and it's voted on. Is that something that we do here, or is that something that the town council does?
The town council make the rules, but we'll, you know, take that input. It's just, you know, once it reaches capacity or it's over capacity, who do we kick out?
Right.
And then it's, you know, again, creating that negative interaction that you really don't want, but that is something that like other parks have. But we're just trying to figure this out.
Okay, and then, like I said, I've been kind of running around a little bit. So for Lake Down Park, there is going to be a fence there. Is that just at the dock, or is it up before the little swing area by where like the?
It's at the area, it would be at the area where the split rail fencing is currently in front of the parking lot. So that's already naturally there, and there's already an opening. So you'd have a gate and you'd have a fence there to cross that off. I didn't do a diagram for that because that's pretty straightforward.
And is that fence big enough for like when you open it to drive a golf cart through or anything, or is it just, it's just a pedestrian?
Pedestrian.
Just pedestrian entryway. Okay, like I said, guys, great. I mean, I've only heard great feedback from other neighbors. I think the fence is going to be a good start. You know, I'm afraid of what may happen once they jump the fence twice and don't get in trouble, just as well as the last person said, but at least this is a good start, and I think it'll do well for the community. So appreciate the work you guys do.
Thank you. And again, you know, law enforcement's going to be out there. You know, they can have positive interactions. But again, we're just trying to do what we can. All right. Is that Rick or Tracy Mitchell?
Hey, It's both.
Okay.
I was just wondering, you know, especially due to Doug and everything, that when we came up with the whole Lake Street Trail and Parks, I didn't know that it was separate. I thought it was all a continuous park from Fifth to Third. I guess I should know more about this, but my biggest thing is we need to be able to use it for the residents. And people are taking down signs. I don't know who's doing it, but you know, I feel like we're not being able to utilize it for our residents. And I understand what's going on. I came in late on this meeting, but any thoughts on that?
Making it resident only?
Well, no, I'm saying that the residents should be able to use it. What I'm saying, it's been closed down a long time. I know I've talked with the town, and I know we're going through some things to get it, you know, fixed properly, but it's seems like it's not even accessible at all. And you're saying that we can use it even if it's taped off?
No, I'm not saying that.
I thought I heard somebody say that they
No,
could
from
go
what-
in the lake.
They,
I
they
thought
were
you could
coming
say-
in from the lake or, you know,
Okay.
swimming, stuff like that. From a liability standpoint, we need to make sure that, you know, everything that we have in our parks is safe. And due to the storm, you know, we're still working with FEMA on trying to get that money to fix those, and also short up to make sure that it's not going to have the same negative impacts in the future. But, you know,
I know, I get what you're saying. I've heard it all, but I just, it's so pretty out there, so clear. Everybody wants to use it, and everybody's asking me, you know, why can't we get out there? So I just want to give them some solid answers.
no, I agree. And I wish I can give you a date, but we're moving in the right direction, working with FEMA and management on getting those funds to fix those areas. But, you know, when it came down to the FERDAP grant, it actually extended down from Lake Street to Lake Down. So it includes the entire area. So that's why we have to keep them open in perpetuity for public use.
Yeah, I got you. Okay, well, I know you guys work hard. I just want to get answers to all my resident neighbors. They're all asking.
Yeah, and have them give me a call. You know, again, we're just working with other jurisdictions to fix this. So, you know, it takes time, and unfortunately, it takes more time than we would like. I'm still working on West 2nd Avenue and Bessie and Butler, and that was from Hurricane Irma.
Okay, well, thank you.
Hey, Robert, it's Rick Mitchell.
Hey, Rick.
Hey, one idea that I've been kicking around is, you know, there's a consent and final judgment with the adjacent property owners. I'm wondering if we could amend the consent final judgment by agreement to limit access to residents only. I haven't researched it or talked to Heather about it, but it may be an option to give us a pathway to limit it to residents only.
The only problem with that, Rick, is that the federal funds were used for developing the project, and the grant agreement requires the property to be used in perpetuity as a park once the federal funds were used.
Specifically for all members of the general public?
In perpetuity, exactly.
Okay, well, there goes that idea.
It's a good idea, though.
And, you know, that was just for access to build a boat dock. And that was it. It is right away. And that's where the whole lawsuit came about, was because they were trying to acquire the right of way from the town.
Correct. By adverse possession.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was the only thought I had. I appreciate all your hard work for the town, and We have an excellent town attorney
Not an excellent town manager. Thanks, Rick.
and an excellent town manager, of course.
No, he said that first, Robert. He did. Thanks,
You didn't
Rick.
hear me. I must have, yeah.
You gotta stop by and see the new offices, man. It's been a while.
All right, I will do. Thanks, guys.
Hopefully, Tracy, I'll see you on Saturday for Doug's thing.
Yeah, she's gonna speak. She's so nervous.
Anything you say is going to be great.
Yeah, don't be nervous, Tracy. Don't be nervous. It'll be fine.
So sad. I'm so sad. I can barely even speak when I think.
I know. I know.
And sorry for legal terms, but perpetuity means forever. All right, we have Rick Irwin.
Thank you. Hi, I'm sorry I joined you late. I had a flight delay. I love the fence. And
I love the beard.
Well, it's a North Carolina look, but thank you very much. It will be interesting. But I like the fence. I think it's a good thing. I don't know how far. I live at 501 Lake Street, which is the property immediately west of the Lake Street. East of the Lake Street Park. And how far is the fence going to go? That was my question.
It'll go to the property line.
Okay,
That's good.
that's good. I think that what you're doing is a great idea. Thank you for
As long as the Kellogg's like it.
doing. As long as my neighbors, the Kellogg's, like it. I hope Bonnie's on this phone call, and I haven't spoken to her, but
I think she is.
we love the activities that you're doing to try to moderate the population of this small, remote, intimate dock and asset of our community. Thank you.
Like that.
Tell the missus I said hi. She's in the background. I can hear her.
Yeah.
I'm here, hi, Robert.
Yeah, our flight got in real late today, but we're here in
Hey,
town. Thank you very
You
much.
got here. That's all.
All right, thank
What
you.
matters. Thank you, guys. Amy's iPhone.
Hey, Robert. It's Amy. Nice to see everybody, all the nice Windermere residents. And I am at 336 East 5th. And when I sit on my beautifully remodeled dock, and which we waited years to do. And so now on the weekends, we get to notice everybody that goes by, and when that dock is open, and just hordes of people going down with their radios and all that, and their cocktails and their whatever else they have down there. So now we get to see that. But my question is, help me understand, if we did not have those that FERDAP grant, could the dock have been privatized?
The dock or the property?
The property, I guess one or the other, I guess the property. Could that have been privatized without the FERDAP grant?
I would like to say yes. It would become a resident only park, just like you would have in an HOA. Residents only get a key card, stuff like that. But since we did receive those funds, and the contract runs with the land, it has to remain a public park. Okay,
so my next question is, who made the decision to utilize that grant for this park?
I believe it was in 2004, Tanya, am I correct?
2006 and 8. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Thank you, Heather. You've got the documents. Thank you.
Okay, so
2008.
2008 was, who decided that the town of Windermere residents wanted a public park in perpetuity?
I think it was a unintended consequence of, getting funding for something that people wanted. but not understanding what the ultimate repercussions would be. So the intent was pure. So it would have been, either Parks and Rec or, definitely town council would have to agree to that. But just not understanding what was going to happen. Once it's
So-
constructed.
So who voted on that? Did the
That'd be town
town
council.
vote on that? Or just the
That'd be-
town council members?
Yes.
So only 5 people voted on what the entire town wanted, what they felt was best for the town is what happened.
I mean, that's what representative government's all about. If we were to put a referendum for every project that we do, it would just be a log jam. So,
Okay, so
yes.
since I don't understand this all that well, is there any way that the residents can get together and do an addendum or a petition and say, we were not made aware of this, we'd like to revoke this? It's almost like a lawsuit against the town.
No. It's an agreement that was entered into, with the state of Florida. And we've tried to work with them as much as possible on trying to repay the funds. And unfortunately, the language, it is what it is. So we're just trying to deal with what we can do, not what we would hope to do.
Robert, can I add one thing there? There is a process in the Florida Administrative Code. It's called the conversion process. And the town's spoken a little bit, very briefly, to the Department of Environmental Protection about this. The conversion process requires the town to pretty much set up another park, just like this one, somewhere else at its own expense. If there would be, like you were saying, like a privatization of this park. We haven't really looked at that so much further because we were told it was extremely costly. But that is a process that could be looked at if these less expensive fixes don't work.
Okay, so I think my question was pretty valid, though, that I guess we moved here in 2005, that I don't know if anybody on this call knew that this park was going to be public and in perpetuity. Am I the only one that didn't know that in this town, or do you think, or or did most people know that?
Well, I mean, when you purchase a property next to a public park, it is what it is. Then the town has control over, what's going to be placed there and so on and so forth. So all we can do is try to, minimize the negative impacts that you're experiencing right now.
Okay, thank you.
Big Amy, and proud of your son.
Hey, thanks. Us too. Go Gators.
Did he win
Go
he
Gators.
won the national championship, right?
Yeah, the team won the national championship, and then Fred Biondi, who was on the Gators, he won the individual, and then the team won the SEC championship as well this year. And then John won the SEC last year. So yeah, a lot of good stuff.
And coming from a Knoll, so
Yeah, it's good. All
I'm
right.
still
Well,
very
thank you.
proud.
Yeah, thanks for everything, and we'll try to wrap our heads around this.
Yeah, we're doing the best we can. Videographer. Oh, Jennifer Roper. Jennifer, can you unmute? Go to Scott again.
Yeah, sorry for the repeat question, but since we have Officer Bonk on the call, he's still on the call, right? I did want to clarify something because my wife and I were actually on our paddle boards at the Lake Street Park, the one with the covered dock, and we were in the water, and a police officer came by and told us we couldn't use it. And I had the same understanding that you had, which was that we could use the water, we just can't use the beach or the dock. And she said that anything beyond the back, we couldn't be any closer than the back edge of the dock. And so I wanted, if that's, maybe there needs to be a communication within the, either it needs to be clarified in this meeting, or that maybe there needs to be a communication within the Windermere Police Department about those rules, because we were asked by the police to leave, even though we weren't on the beach or the dock. So just a clarification there.
And you said you were in the water beyond the dock?
Yeah. My wife and I were in the, no, we were not beyond the dock. We were in that little cove in the water on our paddle boards. And we were told that anything beyond, anything closer than the back edge of the dock, we couldn't be there.
Okay, well, I'll clarify that with my staff. As long as you're in the water, then you're fine. You just can't come up on the shoreline and into the park. We have that closed for that safety reason, so.
Yeah, and we saw the tape and everything there, but we were just hanging out there on our paddle boards. We were not on the beach or the dock.
Yeah, I think the ordinance like just states about motorized watercraft, not non-motorized watercraft.
And she actually specifically stated, so it wasn't like a question about that. She said we couldn't be closer than the back of the dock. So there's a boundary, there's a difference in the boundary between what she stated and this meeting. I'm just pointing it out.
Yeah, I think it's like 150 feet or something like that.
You said it was anything in the water, right?
Right.
You said we could be in the water.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but there's. Yeah,
I'm not looking for the legal definition. I'm just pointing out that you're saying in this meeting we could be in the water, and we were told by the police to leave because we couldn't be closer than the back edge. You can't be both. So we need to figure out which one it really is.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be an educational thing for the officers to understand. But I mean, you had every right to be there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Maya.
We talk to them.
Oh, Jennifer, you're on now.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Just listening to the meeting, I haven't really been attending any other meetings on this, but the teenagers, this is a big problem. Pretty much everywhere we have teenagers these days. And I'm wondering, when you're selling these passes to get in the skate, will there be an age restriction on who can purchase these passes? Is it adults only?
That's something you have to work out with the state, on the number or percentage and then age.
Okay, and if hopefully there is an age restriction on being able to purchase something like that, then, of course, the parents, I would think residents could purchase for their family. But when we get into things with teenagers, a lot of times their parents won't be with them. And I'd like to find out if we could even put something up that, because you have no lifeguard there, and, I know you can say swim at your own risk and all that, but could we say, like some pools do, minors only with the company of an adult? Can you say that?
You can say it, but, and I get this a lot, government is not your parent.
Well, and I don't want us to, and that's why I'm trying to figure out ways to not micromanage it, but to stop it at the time we get the pass, like, sorry, you on your jet ski, you can't buy a pass because you're not old enough. And don't they have to have a driver's license too to drive a jet ski?
You just have to
be 16. Oh, you don't have to have the license?
No, I think you actually have to be, Jason can correct me, but over the age of like 7.
Well, because my daughter got pulled over when she was about 10, and he read the sheriff read the statute to me on my dock after he had pulled her over, and I think there may be a law on that, unless they've laxed it like everything else.
You have to be.
I just Googled
14?
it. It's 14. Yeah, there you
14.
go.
The-
14 and you have
Or-
voter safety education.
Okay, so they took away that part of it. Does anybody, hello, Deputy Bonk. Is anyone holding parents responsible for their children anymore? Do we do that anymore?
And
From
what type of
a-
situation are you talking about?
A philosophical,
Well, just like, because we've been down there with my grandchildren and the jet skiers, they're breaking two rules, I think. They're the rule I always grew up knowing, but everything's different, I guess, now. No wake within 100 feet of any dock, boat, or landmass. 100 feet. They're definitely breaking that.
So when we come in contact with juveniles or anybody with jet skis, we currently have an off-duty detail. And even when we don't have that on the weekends, our officers are trained. Once they come up on the shoreline, when we find a violation, they have citations they can issue for the boating violations. It would be no different than driving a car. As far as, are we notifying their parents? Unless there's some other criminal activity, we're just giving them a citation, no. But now if we come in contact with juveniles at the dock, which we have in the past, drinking alcohol, doing drugs or any other criminal activity, at that point, many times we've contacted parents and had them come pick them up. And that
Okay, yeah, I've seen that happen.
Issue a trespass, and we've done that many times. So we are contacting parents, and sometimes that's a positive and sometimes it's not. So
True, I understand that. Okay, well, that was just all I had on my mind, just listening to the meeting. But I do like the fence. And people that, are you going to advertise like, oh, anybody can get a boat pass? Or we're just going to put it up, and then if you know, you'll go get one. If you don't know, you won't know.
No,
We're going to advertise it.
Well, we have to advertise for the residents to get a key code. But yes, we have to
But
advertise.
like in the town newsletter and Facebook, right?
Yeah, just like with the boat passes, when we transition from keys to a code, we have to advertise that.
So are non-residents able to use our boat ramp now?
No.
Okay. And is that because we have not taken public funds for the boat ramp?
Correct.
Okay. So we won't do that anymore then, right? Hopefully.
No.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. You work very hard. I appreciate you.
No problem, Jennifer. Frank, you've been very patient, and I saw you last night. So, and 2 nights in a row, I'm blessed.
Are you talking to me right now?
No, Frank Krenz.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I'll call you again, Maya, or Frank, go ahead.
Okay, so I came in late. So, hey, by the way, the fence at the Fernwood is just phenomenal. It's just a wonderful thing. And it works. And thank everybody that was involved and got that happen. This one would have a separate pass, or would it be the same pass? I kind of missed that in the conversation.
We would work it to each household would get a key code, similar to the Fernwood gate. So you wouldn't have a separate one for each individual access point. You just have one. And we're looking into that for not only, this area, but also for, the tennis courts in the future.
Okay.
But but what it gives us is when you punch that key code in, the time, the date that you're entering into that park area. So if something were to occur, we're able to timestamp that and use the camera system to figure out what's going on. So if you give it to somebody else, or if there are some issues that are out there, we're able to figure out who actually did it.
Yeah. Hey, this is a great system. So really, I applaud all that stuff.
Yeah.
And here's
Hold on, Frank. Frank, 1 second. My dog's ripping something up real quick. Let me go. It was an Amazon box, so we're good.
Okay, well, this is kind of for Scott and for maybe comic relief.
Well, Frank, real quick. As I said, in many meetings, always direct your comments to staff.
Okay,
And not other individuals on the call.
okay. So
Just
so
from a
let-
decorum
Yeah,
purpose. So
I'm sorry, I get it. So loud music's a problem everywhere. And there are there are ways to address that you can Google. And I would just caution you, actually, if you're kind of tech-minded, whoever, there are ways to drive speakers from a distance to destruction. Requires some equipment. And again, it's not legal, so I'm not recommending anybody do that.
you know this is being recorded, right?
I have a lawyer.
That is Larry Krenz from Ocala.
Yeah, that's all I've got.
All right, thanks, Frank. Maya.
Man, you gotta love that Frank guy. I'm sorry. I just wanted to clarify one thing. So
Yes,
you
sir.
mentioned when you were talking to Mr. Irwin that the fence was going to start at his property line. I would assume it's going to go all the way across to the other property line on the west of him.
Yeah, it goes the entire length of the right of way.
Okay.
Once you get to the properties that are adjacent to the lake, they are, per the court order, required to put up a little fence, to show where their property ends and where the, town right of way is. But yeah, it's going to go from, when you walk up to that park area, you're going to see that, okay, this is fenced in from point A to point B.
Okay. And also at the Lake Down Park, I assume that's going to go from property line to property line as well.
Yes.
So in that case, between Lake Down Park and Lake Street Park, the only way to access that right of way or the Lake Street Trail would be to go through and use your code.
Yes, or trespass on somebody's property.
So would now
Okay.
required to put a fence up? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So yeah, you said everybody along there is required to have some type of fence to just basically just show where the trail is.
Yeah, and when I say fence, it's not like an actual fence that you see here. It's, some people have the small little white picket things that are up, just showing where, their private property is. But, I don't want to give you hopes that there's going to be a wrought iron fence all the way down. It's just going to be, at the entrance points.
Okay.
Sure.
All right. We just purchased the property at the end of 4th Street at the Lake Down Park, and so I was concerned. I was just wondering if it was so. In order to access that Lake Street Park, you're going to have a code.
Either.
I'm sorry, the Lake Street. It goes from one to the other, from Lake Street Park all the way down to Lake Down Park.
Right.
That's all considered part of it.
Yeah, wherever there's an entrance point, you're going to have a code to get through the little gate.
Okay, perfect.
And again, the best example I can give is like an HOA. When you go to their pool or their playground, most of them have key cards or, key pads that you're going to have to type in to get entrance in there.
Right.
But it'd be something similar to that.
That's great. Yeah, and I've heard nothing but good things about the results at 7th Street, so I'm excited.
And what in the Downs, they have the same kind of thing. It doesn't seem like there's a lot of trouble going on over there.
That's right. It's an HOA.
Oh, I see. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's gated communities or HOAs, they have their own rights that they can, put in place. When it comes to the town of Windermere, since it's it's a township, it's not an HOA, but we can do as much as we can to try to curtail some of the issues. But there's a line that we just cannot cross.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Jennifer, do you have anything else, or Jen Roper? No. All right. Let me check out the comments real quick and see if there's anything that we didn't address. The repercussions for jumping off a roof, we have civil infractions to where, they'll have to pay fines. But typically the best way to do that is just to do a trespass. Give them a trespass warning. If they show up, then they can be arrested. The sheriff has a jet ski patrol. Again, for the Butler chain, that's where they're mainly focused, really not Lake Down. Once it hits that lakefront, then it's their jurisdiction. We can call for assistance or anything like that, but we can't mandate them to do anything. All right. Anybody else have anything relative to this subject? Scott.
Yeah, sorry, I keep coming back in, but you
No,
guys
you're
mentioned
fine.
that you would have a gate at every entry point. I just want to ask this question: that the path goes all the way to 3rd Street. Is the gate? Is there going to be a gate that enters into that goes across those backyards between 4th and 3rd? Is there going to be a gate at 3rd Street, or is that going to be like an open access point where people could walk in?
Anywhere where the public right of way hits the lakefront, we'll be putting up a fence.
So that would include 3rd Street, because the right of way goes all the way from 3rd Street down to 5th Street.
Right, and I'll talk to Tanya about that.
Right. I mean, I can understand the point of having an entry point, an entry gate there in terms of like having that whole thing gated off, but we don't really have a problem at 3rd Street yet. We might as a result of these actions, but we don't yet.
Yeah, and it's, once you plug the hole somewhere, then it's going to open up somewhere else. So yeah, we're
I
going
guess
to
I
make
would
sure
just,
that.
yeah, you got to be thinking about 3rd Street because it's kind of connected to this whole thing. But.
Understood. Paul and Lisa.
Yeah, just one comment on the roof on the. There's a lot of discussion whether they should put a roof on it to try and stop these teenagers jumping off. And for me, I would say, don't have the roof. I don't think it's much of a safety issue as it will just deter teenagers coming just to purposely come just to jump off the roof. They come down there just for that, just for the fun factor. And if you take that away, then it may deter, teenagers coming down just for that reason.
Right. And that's something that I'll take to town council to see if they want to remove the roof.
Okay, that's it.
Peggy?
Hi, Robert. Thank you for everything you're doing. We love the idea of the fence. It's awesome. And the key code, because it is working great over at the boat ramp. I have a question. Do you know what the charge would be for non-residents for a key code?
We would have to work with the state on determining what a reasonable fee would be, and also what restrictions that we would be able to place on non-residents, either the number of people, percentage, all that stuff to figure out, okay, what can we get away with? But what can we do to, restrict non-residents from entering those areas? But we still have to keep it open to the public.
Okay, and then like James and I would have a key code, and then when my kids come into town, they can use our key code. Is that correct or not?
Yeah. I mean, they can use it.
Okay,
So
and then, go ahead.
it's going to be like the boat pass. When we had the key system, people were selling their keys.
Right.
But now that we have the key code and the cameras up there, there's more accountability. So if somebody is giving it to, abusing it, let's say there's a jet ski company that, is able to get a key code and they're just picking people off the dock. We're able to see who that person is that is utilizing that key code because of the camera system.
Okay.
And because of the frequency of the use of the key code.
Okay, and then I have a couple responses to people, but I know I can't say their names. So the first one is the response to the gentleman who was talking about the excessive noise down, not, you don't see me, I'm pointing down, not here at our dock.
Your video is not on, so I can't see you.
I know. But anyway, down a little further. And what James and I have done, and you'll laugh, is when there's tons of kids down there, we'll go down there with our Bose speaker thing and Frank Sinatra, and we'll play it and they leave. Literally, they leave. Okay, that was one. And then the next one is
number one, Peggy, I love the initiative, but I'm just cautioning you. That can create a negative interaction.
It was hilarious when we turned it on. They just
I agree,
left.
but it just takes somebody that doesn't think it's hilarious, and
Yeah. And then I have a response to my neighbor who was asking if we were aware of the dock becoming public in 2004. And I can tell you that I've been here since 98. James has been here since 90. And no, we were not aware of anything where the dock was being public, becoming public. Just a response. And the last one is, if by chance there is a problem with a lot of teeny boppers down there, can one of your police cars, like Robbie's car, be just parked down there on the weekends?
Yeah. I mean, Robbie's car barely works right now. So secret to everybody here, if you see Robbie's car, it's nobody's in it.
Right.
Sorry, Jason. But yeah, no, I mean, it's a deterrent, and we'll do everything that we can to deter any, bad activity that's happening at those locations.
I only see good happening right now, and thank you very much for everything.
Thanks, Peggy.
You're welcome.
Scott, hey, Rick or Tracy?
Hey, Robert, I just want to make a point of clarification on this allegation that this land suddenly became public in 2008. I've heard the reference. This right of way has been public since the town's founding by virtue of the founders recording in the public records the town plat that specifically showed this land as public right of way. So It always has been, always will be public land, and the town is discussing reasonable limitations, not to exclude other people who aren't residents, but to put reasonable requirements on them. But any allegation or suggestion that this suddenly went from private to public is not correct.
Right, and thank you for that clarification. It's just, when we receive the funds, again, I think it's an unintended consequence that, you had to keep it open to the public for all. And you're totally correct. When it was platted, that is public right away. So, yeah.
Yes, thank you for that clarification, Rick.
Yeah, and I'm going to put some brain power into thinking of creative ways to.
Well, that's why it's called Lake Street Trail, because it was a street. Look at the plaque.
Yeah.
I'll get with Heather and come up with some ideas on potential solutions that are consistent with the law.
Yeah, get those pro bono numbers.
Man, I've been doing pro bono for this town since 2002. I'm so poor.
Thanks, Rick.
All
right.
Guys.
You guys take care. Anybody else? If not, again, I thank you for everybody participating. You know, it's a great discussion. We're trying to give, you know, the options that we're able to do. You know, it's not going to, again, correct it 100%, but at least it's, you know, taking the step forward to hopefully getting you guys, you know, the peace of mind, or the quiet enjoyment that you deserve, being adjacent to these areas. So again, I thank you guys very much. And sorry, I was like reading the notes. But yeah, once it gets on town council, we'll make sure that we shoot it out there and inform all of you. So thank you again for participating tonight and being part of the conversation.
Thank you. Good
Thanks,
night.
Peggy.
Good night.
Good night. And I gotta clean up whatever the dog ripped up.
Oh.
Good night, Robert. Thank you.
Thanks, Phil. Bye.
Good night, bearded man.
Good night.
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, everyone. Have a good evening.
Here.
Okay. Let's go to Hawkers. Here's my plan.
I'm gonna go there.
Absolutely.